Yes, people, welcome to KGX to the Z TV. Welcome to my first live stream. Come in, smash a like, hit that subscribe. Let me know in the comments. Let me know what your thoughts are. Let me know what your feelings are as it relates to the upcoming 2025-26 Chelsea season. The plan is to we'll go through the squad. We'll talk a little bit about the squad as it's currently constructed. We'll talk a little bit about any potential incomings that we can use to bolster the squad, strengthen the squad, prepare us ahead of the what's going to be a very, very long and arduous season, right? Coming off the Club World Cup in four competitions, right? The two domestic cups, the league, as well as the expanded Champions League format. So, do we need to dip back into the market? Does that take into account the two signings that we know are pretty much imminent in Javi Simmons and Alejandro Garnacho? Or does that mean that in addition to those two signings, we still need to dip into the market? We'll discuss that. And then lastly, we'll take a look at the first upcoming five fixtures that we have on the calendar. We all know that we're going to stay in England for these, or sorry, in London. Of course, we're going to stay in England for the league, but we're going to stay in London for these fixtures. So it is adamant that we take maximum points if we are to contend and if we consider ourselves contenders for this upcoming 2025-26 English Premier League season, as well as Champions League, in addition to the cups, domestic cups, which, in my personal opinion, I think we need to be going for. But with that said, let's jump right into it. Right, we won't make this a long one. We'll just get into it. We'll talk a little bit. If folks join, we'll go ahead and we will um, engage with the chat and get comments, feedback, and all those fun things. But let's take a look at the squad. All right, apologies, it's a little bit small, but we'll take a look at it when we'll go and we'll look at the easiest way to do that, and that's sort of to tackle this by positional groups, right? So we got the keepers, we got the defenders, we got the midfielders, and then of course we have the forwards, right? And this is the list that we're going to be using. This is the Premier League's official website. This is the comprehensive list of all of the players that are currently on the books at Chelsea, even though we know that the accuracy of this list can be questioned because there are some players on here that either do not have a role, are players that are going to be in the reserves, um, the U21 teams, U18, and we know that there's players on this list that are have been linked heavily with moves away from Stamford Bridge. So we'll take a look at it. We'll gloss over those folks that do not have a role or probably won't play a part in the upcoming success or failure. We'll throw out that as well for the upcoming season. But we'll go through the squad, see where it takes us. So look, first part of that squad that we've got to talk about is we'll build out from the back, right? So just like we're picking our best 11, we will start from the keeper position, right? And that is none other than three keepers on the books right now: Robert Sanchez, Philip Jorgensen, and Solina. We won't talk about Penders. Penders is on loan to Strasbourg. Um, we all know the kind of potential that he has, but we know that he is not in the plans for this upcoming year. Whether or not the moves that we make in the market this summer or next summer, um, a lot of those will be made with an idea of who of Penders and him being able to integrate into the system, into the team, and potentially making a case for that number one spot. So we've got to talk about it because we have been linked heavily with, and I wouldn't say heavily, but we've been linked with two keepers all summer. One in the beginning of the summer, that Mike Magnon, French international, who um, AC Milan, 30 years old. Ultimately, the deal fell through because Chelsea did not want to pay up. From the Chelsea perspective, they looked at it as a market opportunity to go in there and ask about, see what Magnon is. Because of his age, he's 30 years old. He might have been a nice little stopgap, have him for a couple of years until Penders gets up to speed. If that's the plan, and that, in my all honesty, well, I can't say for sure. In my mind, that is what the plan is, right? We're looking at stopgap measures to not block the pathway of Mike Penders. So we've got Robert Sanchez currently on the books, currently our number one keeper. Uh, Second half of the season last year and into the Club World Cup, his form picked up. But we know what Robert Sanchez is about. We know that his shot stopping is his strength, but his decision making when the ball is at his feet for distribution is by far the biggest area for concern for us Chelsea fans. And we know, and we all have PTSD of some of the howlers that he's committed over the last 2 years, right? We know the stats. Most goals or most errors contributed to goals last year in the league. I think it was either 5 or 6. We know that it potentially could have been much more. He pulled out a couple of really good saves, but there's moments in the season this year and last year. I always think of that Declan Rice goal that at Stamford Bridge 2 years ago, where he just passed it directly to him. Arsenal were dead in the water, and he pretty much gave them a lifeline and prevented us from being Arsenal for the first time in God knows how long, right? So we've got Sanchez as the number one. We've got Jorgensen, who we bought last year for around 20 million, who was supposedly looked at in the same regard as a Penders in terms of, so it's a keeper that's supposed to be good with his feet, one that has a lot of promise, one that had experience in Europe. So, the move in hindsight to get Jorgensen, it's looking like a mistake. And even though he deputized a little bit last year, he got some minutes in the Premier League. He was our cup keeper for the Conference League as well as for the domestic cups. Um, he didn't prove enough last year to warrant himself taking the number one reins from Sanchez, which says a lot about him. Um, Obviously, we don't see what Maresca and the coaching staff sees in practice, but if you're the number two to Robert Sanchez's one, that brings up a lot of red flags and a lot of concerns about how good you really are and whether or not you have the ability to be Chelsea's number one moving forward, and especially in a side that is looking to push for major honors this year, as we all expect our team to, and as we all realistically think that we can achieve. So behind them is the American goalkeeper Selena. He's looking like he's going to be the third keeper, although it's always strange because you want that third keeper to be homegrown, because obviously, honestly, the third keeper very, very, very rarely plays unless you get an injury to one of the first two top choice keepers, right? So going back to the discussion and some of the sticking points that we've talked about at length over on Twitter as well as other folks' channels. I'm of the opinion that if there are better goalkeepers out on the market than Robert Sanchez, then we need to explore those opportunities. Flat out, no point beating around it. Every keeper that you get out there that you can sort of attain, so every keeper that's attainable on the market right now is going to come with some flaws. Even the top keepers, right? Courtois, Allison, all have flaws to their game, right? Allison has the occasional howler. He's injury prone. Courtois isn't the greatest with his feet, although he's improved a lot. So the notion that we want a keeper that's both a great shot stopper and great with his feet, so think of like a prime Manuel Neuer, is just not realistic in my opinion. And if it comes down to it, the kind of keeper that I would rather have in between the sticks for me, if I was playing as a defender and if I was Maresca, I want somebody that is a better shot stopper and a better shot saver than someone that is good with their feet. I understand the dynamics of building out the back, even though I'm not a huge fan of sort of this Pep philosophy that has matriculated its way throughout the English league, as throughout uh, domestic football leagues and across Europe. I still would prefer to have a keeper that is about keeping goals out as opposed to contributing in the buildup to our attack and things like that. For me, financials aside, right? We know and we've seen sort of what the striker market is. We've seen PSG has already replaced Chevalier, who had a stinker by the way versus Spurs in the Super Cup. But we've seen what the goalkeeper market is in terms of transfer fees. The only issue then, and the one that I really think would probably prevent um, Chelsea from going after a Donnarumma is just the wages. Um, he's currently on big wages at PSG. The clubs that he's been linked to in the Premier League, Manchester United as well as Man City, both have the ability to pay those big wages. So whether or not Chelsea would want to come up and would want to be or want to offer wages competitive or on par with what those two clubs could offer and would offer is TBD. I don't think that's something that our current ownership group and our current philosophy would do, but it's something that I would be. I'm not a huge fan of I like this wage structure. I think it allows us flexibility to move on players. And if you're looking at clubs like Arsenal, if you're looking at clubs like Spurs, who have shown that they cannot sell players at the rate that we are selling players and at the fees that we command, as Liverpool commands, even Man City, when it comes to some of their younger players, it comes down to wages and it comes down to cap friendly contracts. I won't say cap, but friendly contracts when it comes to into the wages and especially in this day and age of PSR and FFP and all that financial accountant BS, where if you need to move players on and they're on high wages because the financial crisis in the Serie A, in the Bundesliga, in La Liga, outside of the huge clubs and outside of the big clubs in those leagues, there's not too many clubs that have the ability to pay the kind of wages that Premier League sides pay, which in turn makes it difficult for a lot of top Premier League clubs, cough Manchester United, to move some of these players on. So, look, so I get it. You're also running the risk of alienating certain players, but a player like Donnarumma, whose credentials include being the youngest goalkeeper to start a match at Milan, right? 16, won the Euros. I think he was player of the tournament in that. Won a treble last year, and I think he's won 4 straight League Ons, which isn't, for PSG, that's not something to really hang your hat on when it comes to the league titles. But the treble last year and him being instrumental, PSG would not have won that Champions League without Donnarumma. There's no if, ands, maybes, buts about it. That second leg versus Liverpool at Anfield, that second leg versus Aston Villa when PSG was under the cosh and they were facing a barrage of attacks and a barrage of shots. Donnarumma was coming up big time and time and time again. And yes, we've seen Donnarumma have some howlers from time to time, but his form over the last 18 months, if you want to throw Robert Sanchez's form from the last six months in there and use that as the crux of your argument for why we should keep Sanchez, then you also need to take into account Donnarumma's form over the last 18 months and how instrumental he's been to what PSG has accomplished over that time frame. Whether or not we get him, I really don't think we do. I think Man City is in pole position, and I think if Man City sort of drops the ball, he'll go across town and leave the Etihad to go to the Old Trafford, where United are desperate to pick up a keeper. But it brings up some concerns too. A lot of people will say, "Oh, Donnarumma is not good with his feet." If he's not good with his feet, how did he manage to achieve what he did in in PSG? How did he manage to attract the interest of Pep Guardiola, right? You're looking at Man City, they're going from a potential of having um, Ederson and Ortega, two keepers that are good with his feet, although Ederson's much better than Ortega. Ortega's probably the better shot stopper, to a guy like Donnarumma. If Donnarumma has all these issues playing the ball out with his feet, starting attacks at the back, why is Pep Guardiola interested in him, especially after they just brought on James Trafford, right? 22 million, 23 million, however much the final deal was from Burnley. Supposed to be England's future number one, really good with his feet. So if Donnarumma is good enough to play with Pep, why can't he play for Maresca, and why can't he play for Chelsea? I'm of the opinion, if the wages aren't too crazy, bring him in, bring him in. But yeah, Jorgensen, jury's still out on Jorgensen. Still a young keeper. I wouldn't want to necessarily get rid of him, but if you brought in a Donnarumma, he could still be there as a number two, unless you want to move Sanchez to number two and move one of them on. Neither one of them are on big wages. Both of them are still relatively young, especially for keepers. So moving them on shouldn't be too much of a hassle. But absolutely, if you told me in the off season or in the summer, what is the main position that Chelsea need to upgrade on? I probably would have told you striker, go in no order: striker, goalkeeper, and center back. And we'll get to some of those others positions, but for now, goalkeeper still remains a huge concern. And those folks that have any sort of doubt about where Chelsea will finish in the Premier League, where we will finish as it relates to our European Cup and the two domestic cups. A lot of it is down to the success and how good Robert Sanchez can be between the sticks, and if it's not him, what kind of keeper we do bring in. So definitely, definitely a position that is still worrisome and still troublesome um, going into this season, and hopefully this Robert Sanchez form, it rides out, and we get good Bob Sanchez, we get shaved head Bob Sanchez from this summer's Club World Cup. But the jury's still out and still remain to be seen. I'm personally a little bit pessimistic as it comes to that. So defenders, there's a lot of defenders on this list. We know a lot of these folks won't necessarily be with the team, right? We've got Alfie Gilchrist on there. We know that he's probably going to face a potential move. It looks like a championship, $5 million, $10 million type of loan. Um, we've got DeSassi, who the rumors have sort of gone quiet on a little bit, although there was some rumors about like Brentford potentially being interested in him, but nothing has materialized. Uh, did go out on loan second half of the season last year to Aston Villa. Played a decent amount, even though some of it was at right back where he was ultimately cooked. So I have no idea what the hell Emery was thinking. If you just would have watched highlights from the year before when Poch was playing him at right back, and you just saw him getting just toasted around the outside, like a lot of center backs would if they're isolated 1v1 against Premier League winners, you would know that he's still a decent player, considering the type of defensive structure that you want from your team. If you want to play a high line, the Sassy is not your cup of tea. But if you want to sit back, you want to low block it, you want to mid block it, and you want somebody that will just deal with crosses, that will be physical in the box, that will give his all, right? We remember that Man City performance that he put in 2 years ago, and I think in the 1-1 draw away to the Etihad, when he was excellent for it, and he was pretty much just clearing everything, just heading everything outside of the box, touch tight to Holland and things like that. He's still a very useful defender, but he's not so much in the modern mold of defenders, in terms of he's not silky and he's not great on the ball. He's not overly quick, and it doesn't have too much pace. So he's somebody that will not be part of the plans. We definitely need to ship out. Whether or not that's a permanent move or whether or not that's a loan is still TBD. Ben Chilwell, part of last year's bomb squad in the first half, then second half got his loan move to Crystal Palace, where he played a little bit, picked up a FA Cup medal to add to his trophy collection. But we know the market for Ben Chilwell is extremely limited. Maybe he gets a little bit of bias because he's English and maybe somebody would want to make up the numbers there, but he's either on the wrong side of 30 or he's approaching that age. And for a player that is, let's see, he is 1996, yeah, so 12, so he'll be 30 next year. Um, he's a player that just he's a old school fullback, bombing up and down the wings. Um, Player that relies a lot on his physical attributes, and considering the major injuries that he's had a hamstring, he's had an ACL. Considering the wages that he's on, I think he's on 200K a week or around that. He's a player that's going to be extremely hard to move permanently. Whether or not they buy out his contract, don't know. But he could be one of those deadline day loans that we do a sort of a wage split on just to get him off the books a little bit for this year and recoup a little bit of cash. So again, don't really need him with Hato coming in. We don't really need him for left back cover. But he's someone out of sight, sort of out of mind. If we could move him on a permanent deal, I would take anything. I would take 5 million for him, 10 million, anything above 5 million to me is a good deal for a player that has no future at Chelsea Football Club. Mark Cucurella, the the form he's displayed over the last 18 months speaks for himself. Integral part of our team, box crashing left back now, scores goals, header, defensively solid, has locked down a lot of premier 1v1 wide players over the last 18 months. And most importantly about Cucurella is we finally got him some cover in Hato. So um, again, a mainstay in the team, someone that's going to go out there and give 110% and fight for the team and fight for the badge every single match, has done a monumental U-turn for his Chelsea career. We almost loaned him out to Manchester United last 2 Januaries ago, which would have been a huge mistake in hindsight, but one that wasn't too terrible at the time. So again, no words said about Cuckoo. Tosin, with the injury to Levi Colwell, Tosin's a player that we've got to rely on this year. Not the quickest, but still pretty decent on the ball. It, Against certain teams, Crystal Palace, we're looking at coming up in game week 1. He's a center back that you're going to think about playing when you're going up against somebody physical. And there are still some physical old school stripers, Mateta, Erling Haaland in this league, that you're going to want that extra physicality in there. He's a good leader. He's got really good connections with a lot of the players on the team. He stepped right in. He was a free from Fulham Premier League experience. Looks like he's going to be playing nationally for Nigeria now. So he's a guy that you ultimately we would love to be able to upgrade on, but he's a very good squad option at this particular point. Badiashile, he's a player that I've had a lot of criticism or pointed a lot of criticism at over the years. Um, he's a player that I personally do not think his attributes and his positives outweigh his negatives. Yes, he's very good at line breaking passes. He's got good height. He reads the game fairly well at times. Again, he's a more of a modern center back. He can play in the middle of a three and sort of dictate and spray balls and play one touch and things like that. So he's very he's okay when it comes to being on the ball, but at the heart of it, you want your defenders to be able to defend. And for me, his lack of concentration gets caught out of position. He's not a great athlete, so when he does get caught out of position, he's often um, chasing the play and cannot get up to it. And even his passing at times, I feel like he takes too many risks when it comes to passing, and he will often play players, and especially our midfielders, right? He'll play a ball into Caicedo where Caicedo's facing his own goal, will have a man on right on his back where you're just like, you don't need to play that pass because all Caicedo can do is play it right back to Badiashile, and then Badiashile's got to make another decision again. There's other options and things like that. On top of all of those concerns that I have for him, he's also injury prone, and he's not going to be back until September, even though I think he's back in partial training right now. But again, if we're looking at someone to step into that Colwell role, because he's left-footed, he automatically gets assumed to be the number two for that position, and to step in and kind of hold the reins and hold the fort down until Colwell comes. He's not that guy for me, and he's someone that I think we should be looking to move on because he still has value, um, and just someone that I don't want. I don't think he's good enough long term for Chelsea Football Club. Levi Colwell, we talked about him before, a little bit in passing before, but again, another player that um, we were really, really counting on this year. Not only from a playing standpoint, but also the leadership role that he sort of assumed late on in the season. Some of the quotes that he came out in the offseason, in the summertime, were very, very encouraging. Quotes talking about, and I'm paraphrasing here, about this is a this is Chelsea Football Club. We win trophies. We're out there to compete with the best. Folks might take us lightly, but we're again, we're Chelsea Football Club, and underestimate us at your own peril and things like that. So huge miss, ACL, non-contact, first training session of the new campaign, and we're gonna miss him, his leadership, his passing ability, um, his athleticism. We're going to miss him a lot, and it's going to be interesting to see what Chelsea's plans are for that center back role. Whether or not it's internal solutions such as the Achapong, or if we do go out into the market again. Don't rush. I hope he doesn't rush himself back, which is a real strong possibility considering it's a World Cup year, and he was probably slated to be that left center back or maybe that left-sided center back in the back three. So big disappointment I know from Levi for getting injured, um, and hopefully we wish him the best, and hopefully he takes his rehab very seriously, which we know we will, and just sort of takes his time with it and gets back to the full 100%, not only for us but also for his England future England caps. Hato, we've all been saying for years, and I talked about this a little bit earlier, but we've been saying for a while that we need left back cover for Kukurea. He was just playing too many games for club and country. Hato is a guy that highly rated, captain of Ajax at 19, good physical traits. I think he's like 6 foot. He's strong. We've already seen him in preseason be extremely strong on the ball, push defenders off the ball, looks comfortable getting forward, even though he's not a traditional overlapping type of left back. Has the potential maybe to play as a makeshift center back, maybe in a back three and things like that. I haven't personally seen him. Didn't see, apart from the two preseason games, I haven't really watched him too much when he was at Ajax, apart from the random Champions League game here and there. But I really, because we weren't linked with him at the time, I really wasn't focusing on him. But he's a player that I know was held in high regard by a few clubs. I know Liverpool were monitoring him and were interested in him, but perhaps they had concerns about him playing left-sided center back or left-sided center back for them once Van Dijk eventually does move on or slow down. So we'll see. We'll see with Hato, but again, I'm extremely excited. I like the deal. The money was good, and we should expect to see a good player for us, not only this year but also for years to come. Chalaba, the clubs. What can I say about Trev? I mean, the clubs tried to sell him at every opportunity. Loaned him out last year for the first half of the season to Palace, brought him back, and he was integral towards the back end in the success of the team. Right, he's got a little bit. I wouldn't say he's a great center back by any means. I would say he's a good center back that has a lot of positive traits. He's got decent athleticism. He can cover ground. He reads the game pretty well. He's got decent aerial ability. He's pretty decent on the ball because he's got a background as a midfielder. Did pick up a little knock at the end of or during that the second preseason game versus Milan, but all signs point to him being okay and being available for the first match against Crystal Palace. So we'll see. I wouldn't be surprised if he does hit the market because he's pure profit. But I would prefer to keep him around. He's homegrown. It's nice to see a Cobham kid in the team. And he's just a general. He's a hard worker, and I think he's probably a good influence on a lot of the other younger kids there. Reece James, El Capitano. I mean, we all know what it is with Reece James. If he stays healthy, he's one of the best, if not the best, right back in the world. He's shown that in the summertime where he was excellent in the Club World Cup, whether that be at right back, whether that be at midfield where he stepped in against the supposed best midfield in the league or in the world in PSG and just bossed it. Paramount that we take care of Reece James this year, keep his minutes down, and just take it slow with him so that we can have him towards the business end of the season because it's been a while. The last time we had our two really good fit fullbacks, we ended up winning the Champions League. So nothing else said about Reece. Gusto. Gusto's a tricky one, right? Showed a lot of promise and was had a really good sort of rookie, what we call a rookie campaign for Chelsea under Poch, where he was more of a traditional right back. But last year really struggled to pick up that role of inverted fullback. And to be honest with you, some of it was on Maresca, right? I'm a Maresca fan. I kind of preached to some of our fan base to have patience with him because we're a young squad and a young manager that we're still learning the trade. But I didn't like some of the positions that he put Gusto in, Pauls, where Gusto was almost like he was pushed too high, too forward, and too high up the pitch. Playing in attack was getting on the ball and in situations where we needed somebody with a little bit more skill, a little bit more, well, I don't want to say skill, a little bit more creativity and a little bit more wherewithal in those attacking positions. The last player that I would want on that 11, obviously besides Sanchez and some of the central defenders, was Gusto, right? You'd much rather have Reece James in those positions. You'd much rather have uh, Enzo in those positions and so forth. So big year for Gusto. When he does play um, as a traditional fullback, I think he's very good, especially for his age. He's quick. He's got good feet. He's a good footballer for a fullback, and I think sometimes it masks and you forget that, oh shit, he's supposed to be a right back, but instead you kind of get caught up with all this inverted utter woke BS and things like that. But big year for Gusto, third year, major competitions. He's played a lot, so we've seen a lot of Gusto, which kind of makes it easy for folks to form opinions on. But if we want to achieve what we think we're capable of achieving this year, Gusto is going to have to play a big role, and he's going to have to improve and things like that. So we'll see. Wesley Fofana, right? So he's just one of those players. I'll be honest with you. When he's there and he's fit, which is very rarely over the 3 years that we've had him, or coming into his fourth year. Um, we we know that he's the best right-sided center back that we have at the club. The unfortunate part is he's just never fit, and you just can't count on him. So, as much as I would love to say yes, I would love to see him starting week in and week out. The possibility and the reality of that just isn't. It's just not feasible, given his injury concerns, whether it be hamstrings, whether it be his knee, whether or not it's his knee affecting his hamstrings, as sometimes those kind of injuries linger and you overcompensate for it. So yeah, man, there's with Fafana, I'm happy if he's fit and when he's out there, um, I'm a fan of his, but I just can't count on him. Can't count on him. Uh, Anselmo, um, never seen him play apart from a few minutes here and there in this preseason. Um, wouldn't I have no idea what he's capable of. I know he's supposed to be on paper a good ball playing center back, especially one in the back three who's capable um, of of playing that back three and maybe playing even as a left sided center back. Got decent physical traits. I know he's very highly thought out of. I thought that he was probably going to go on Strasbourg on loan, but it looks like Sarr went to Strasbourg instead. So we'll see. what the future holds with Angelino. But if not, I think he'll be training with a lot with the reserves and maybe be on the bench for the odd Carabao Cup game, maybe dead leg Champions League game, and so forth. So we'll see. We'll see with Angelino. Sort of opposite to him, and I'll say yeah, a little bit contrarian to him. Achupong, right? So he's a Cobham kid, one that we've had the I wouldn't say privilege, but we've had the opportunity to see him play last year in meaningful minutes. We've seen him play in the preseason this year. He played the majority of the Milan game once uh, Trev went off injured and stepped in and handled himself pretty well against a pretty decent, even though they were down to 10 men Milan side. Right, that Milan side, for all intents and purposes, gave Arsenal a lot of work and a lot of problems. Gave Liverpool a lot of problems. I think they ended up beating Liverpool 4-2. So he's a player he's got good experience for a 19-year-old, 20-year-old already at this level. Whether or not you feel like you can trust him to play meaningful minutes, that that opinion varies throughout the Chelsea fan base. And like I don't like to speak for anyone else. I'm personally okay. I'm happy that he'll be a part of the squad. I wouldn't send him out on loan, but I'm not comfortable with him starting week in, week out in the Premier League. I don't think physically he's strong enough. I think there's sometimes where, and these are all traits that he can improve on it, and most likely will improve on because for all intents and purposes, he's a good kid who's put in the work, got this far, is thought up very highly of Maresca. Maybe he's one of the internal solutions that Maresca was talking about before, but um, at times he's a little bit overzealous with his ball carrying, and he'll lose it. At times he might overrun the ball a little bit and be a little bit clumsy on the ball. And again, part of that is just growing pains, right? We know center backs, a lot like goalkeepers, don't peak until they get a little bit older, right? Strikers or attackers, midfielders, those folks 21, 22, 23, you can expect really, really good things out of them. But your center backs, 27, 28, 29, that's really like when they come into their peak. If you think about the best center backs that this league has seen, they were all very, very mature when they were considered around their peak, whether that's John Terry, whether that's Van Dijk, whether that's Rio, Vidic, Jaap Stam, all those guys that I mentioned, and some greats that I left out. They really honed their craft and they really fine tuned it when they got that experience. And yeah, maybe some of their physical traits declined a little bit, but up here, your reading of the game, your understanding of positions, when to step, when to back off a little bit, those are things that can sort of offset some of the physical attributes and the natural decline as you get older. So like I said, not comfortable with him starting major minutes and playing week in and week out, but I want him starting the odd game here and there. I want him involved. I want him playing in the cup competitions. I want him to be in 1-2 years time the potential right-sided center back uh, on opposite of Levi Colwell. I think he's got the potential. He's got the height. He's got the physicality. Um, Obviously, I said he can improve on that, like everybody can, and everybody can usually get stronger and sort of build up their physique a little bit. But he's got a lot of the attributes that I want in a center back: good on the ball, decent passer, quick. But he just needs experience and he needs to fine tune it. And with that comes errors. And I just don't think that if you're a team competing for the highest trophies, you can afford to have those kind of errors in the squad. So we'll see. We'll see. Genesis played really well. I like really, really well versus Milan. I think got an assist in that one, or yeah, he did get an assist to the last João Pedro goal. Um, he played more of a right winger for us in that Milan game, and we saw him last year in one of the Conference League matches, and he played sort of more advanced as well. So I'm not quite sure why the Premier League has him listed as a defender, but if he's a right back by trade, he's somebody that will probably won't go out on loan just because we don't have the loan squad. So he'll be, what the NBA calls like a two-way player. So he'll come up to Chelsea, be on the bench for a little bit in the odd game here and there, go back down to the reserves, play some under 21 PL games and things like that. So I liked what I saw for him in the Milan game. I heard some really good compliments from non-Chelsea fans who said, "Hey, who that Genesis guy? He's pretty direct. He's pretty quick. Had a good delivery on him on the assist. Good awareness. So hopefully he gets some experience around the squad, gets in the training, sees the kind of levels that he needs to attain to, and then just works on his game." All right, so that pretty much wraps up the defenders. We'll talk about the midfielders real quick. We've got a lot of them, and a lot of them are really good. I won't even lie. If you ask me right now, what is the strength of our team? It is for me. It is by far the midfield, um, and I would even go as far enough to say that if we don't have the best midfield in the world, which we outplayed the supposed best midfield in the world, PSG in the Club World Cup final, it is top three, and that is in regards to quality and depth. And when you look at some of the names on this list, you look at the likes of an Enzo, who really came into his own last year. Um, First year of sort of playing as like a box crashing eight, came up huge for us with goals, huge for us in terms of creativity and assists. Um, got some of the injury concerns and problems that he had in his first full Premier League season behind him. To me, it looked like Enzo really took that leap physically, where Maresca kind of challenged him to say, you know what, I'm going to need you to play a little bit closer to the box. You're going to have to get up and down the pitch. And the Enzo that you saw when we first got him to the Enzo you see now, physically is much better. And you could say, Doug, Kevin, Captain Obvious, that's always going to happen as players get older and they mature and they grow into their bodies and fill out a little bit. But credit to Enzo for embracing the new role and sort of dedicating, I guess, whatever time he had in training to getting his body right to put himself in the best positions available to capitalize on some of those box crashing runs, some of those headers, right, the header versus Spurs and things like that. So Enzo's a player that he's going to be integral to our team this year, vice captain. Often had the captain's armband last year when Reese was out a lot. So we're really going to depend on him. Carney's gone. He's going to be out the door. It looks like Dortmund really want him, but Dortmund don't want to pay the money. Um, he's a player that ooh, I liked Carney when he played. Right, very very technical, really good feet. Watched him a couple times in for Dortmund when he was on loan, and even in the Club World Cup. I think he got a couple minutes here and there. Still a player with very, very high potential. The problem for us in moving him on is not so much the fee. Well, I'll say it's twofold. One, we put him on high wages for someone that hadn't accomplished a lot at that particular point in his career. And two, the fee for him is very tricky because on potential, he's a 40 million pound player. But on availability, that probably brings him down to the 20 to 25. So I've seen some intermediate numbers or some introductory numbers with him in terms of heavy add-ons and heavy, maybe even a sell-on. That's sort of what I would be looking to do if I was negotiating that contract. I would be looking at him from the standpoint of, look, the reality is he hasn't shown that he's been able to stay injury free, but the potential is there, and it's easy to see. Physical, he's strong, he's quick, he's got a nice little burst of pace over the first few yards. Um, got a decent eye for goal. He's creative around the box, but unfortunately for us, it's just a numbers game, and he just can't stay healthy. Mudryk, I'm not even sure why Mudryk's on this list. He's not a midfielder, and he's suspended. Um, Cole Palmer, look, there's no need to really delve too much into Cole. He is our linchpin. He is our maestro, our conductor of the orchestra. As we go, Cole Palmer goes, and when he didn't go last year, the attack really fell off and the goals dried up. And it's up to Cole Palmer to take us to the promised land if that's where we want to go and that's where we're destined to go. You're only as good as your best player. There's various points of the season where, and he did this last year in the first half of the season and the whole entire campaign before that, just like Mo Salah, just like Isak and Newcastle, there's points in the season where you need a match winner, and Cole Palmer is our match winner. Now, the idea obviously is to strengthen the squad to get other match winners in there so that they can take some of the emphasis off of him, take some of the creativity burden off of him. But at the same time, Cole Palmer's got to do a better job of finishing and converting some of those opportunities, because there were a lot of opportunities last year that fell to his feet, and he just didn't finish them to the capability that we know that he's capable of. But you know, he's such a good player. He's such a quality player. We saw what he did in the World Cup Club World Cup final and semifinals. Big year for Cole Palmer. Really established himself as one of the best players, not only in the Premier League but also in the world. So, expecting big things from Cole, and we know he's going to deliver. Dario Esugo. So we picked up. If you're not familiar with his backstory, young Portuguese under 21 international, picked him up sort of in a double swap deal or swoop. I'll say swoop deal, double swoop deal with Sporting, where we got him and Quenda, and everything that we've seen from him so far has been impressive. To the point, and this is, there's obviously he's not of this level yet, but to the point where when Caicedo goes off and Asugo has come on for him, you haven't noticed the drop off in quality. He is tenacious in the tackle. He's positionally very, very good for a young age. He's strong. He's got a decent eye for pass. We've seen some nice switches of play and things like that. And of course, we heard the comments and quotes from Maresca about, it's just a matter of him getting up to speed with how we play and when we're on the ball and attack and where to be and things like that. But that comes with age, that comes with experience, that comes from time in the system. But he's a player right now that not only do Chelsea fans highly rate, but I've seen his name being mentioned by a lot of content creators about, who's this Asugo kid? Yeah, he's a bad boy, and he's somebody that we desperately need, because just like Cucurella, Caicedo played way too many minutes for club and country. So we're going to keep the kind of manage keep those down and also be available in terms of yellow cards, because we know Caicedo is no stranger to picking up a booking. So should he get suspended, Isugo can easily, out of all the midfielders we have, he's the most natural Caicedo replacement. Obviously, doesn't do things to Caicedo's level. Not many in the world do, but Isugo is a very, very promising talent and somebody that we're definitely going to need to count on and should improve and get minutes this year. Pretty much carbon copy of what I said for Asugo holds true for Santos. We waited a couple years for this kid to sort of get a little bit more mature and play a little bit, get some more minutes under his belt in European football. Had a bad loan a couple years ago to Nottingham Forest, where they just loaned him to him and they just went out and bought 30 million players. He just wasn't playing, which kind of is crazy when you look back on it, because last year, the time he spent at Strasbourg and what we've seen from him already in preseason as well as in the Club World Cup, he's a baller. And he's somebody, I know I mentioned Sugo is the natural replacement for Caicedo, but depending on who you're playing, if you're going to be playing a team where we're on the front foot a lot and you want to try to break down a low block, maybe you play Enzo and Santos if Caicedo isn't available. He can deputize there, but he's also can play in that Enzo role. It's remains to be seen about whether or not he can do it at the highest level in the Premier League week in and week out like an Enzo. But seeing what he's looked like and how comfortable he's gotten um, with the system and the nice, lovely layoff assist that he had to Delap's last goal for Milan, you can see that he's an all. I won't say all action, but he's an all around midfielder, right? He can do a little bit of box to box. He can sit. He can be creative. He can score goals. We've seen at Strasbourg, again, and young too. So part of the reason why I really really rate our midfield is for the depth options, right? To be able to bring on a Santos or to have him play, there's not too much of a drop off. So big things expected from Asugo, big things expected from more so from Santos, considering his experience. But Again, two really, really good options to have, um, two good profiles to have, two good coverage, backup depth options to have as well. Amari Kellyman, look, this brother I've seen play two, three times for the under 21 squad. Got him in part of that shady deal with what's his name, Matson going the other way to Aston Villa. I have no idea if this kid is going to ever play for the first team. Tall, lanky, pretty decent strike on him, but injuries again set him back. He was injured when we bought him, then he got injured right after. Don't think he goes out on loan. Thinks he stays another year with the development squad, and then we'll make the decision from there, and we'll see. Um, Romeo Lavia. Speaking of injuries, right? Didn't play too much in the or didn't play at all in the preseason. Did play some in the Club World Cup, and when you see him play, you can understand the hype, and you can understand Chelsea fans' frustration. And look, Lavia took a lot of abuse a couple days ago on Twitter when he posted the number 19 countdown, and then I'm keeping receipts and things like that. And look, I get it. Chelsea fans have been on him, and no fan deserves any kind of abuse and things like that. But I sort of understand the mindset of those Chelsea fans is, and I likely think that it's along the lines of he's so good when he plays, and he's played in a lot of our big matches last year where we needed control in the midfield, and we went with a Caicedo, Enzo, Lavia, Palmer off the right, Jet Nico to the middle, and then usually Neto on the left, or Sancho or whoever it was last year. Um, I get it because he's so talented. He's press resistant. He's so comfortable on the ball. He can play line breaking passes. He can carry the ball. He can get into attacking positions. Doesn't have too much end product, but he can sit a little bit. He can dictate the tempo. I mean, he's just such a good technical player, but the injuries have just killed him. I mean, we've had him for 2 years, and he's probably only played 20, 25 or so matches for us in all comps. And like I said before, he's just a player that we just want him to get healthy, and we need him to get healthy because as much as I rate Santos, as much as I rate Asugo, he is our best. He is, if you want to say he's our third best midfielder, I would have no qualms with that. And I would 100% agree. When fit, he is by far to me our third best midfielder, and someone that if you're looking at all the midfielders that we have, he to me is our best ball carrier, best at picking the ball up off the back line, dropping the shoulder, beating a man, taking a player out with a pass, and just advancing the ball up the pitch quickly to our attackers and things like that. So, look, big year for Lavia. I always thought eventually it would be hard to keep all three of these guys because they're all going to want to play and they're all good enough to play. But Lavia really needs to get those fitness concerns addressed, and we need to see more of Lavia because he's such a baller, such a baller. Then these last two, we saw both of them, right? We'll just slip them in together. Samuel Raksaki, and then Reggie Walsh. We saw both of them last year in the Conference League. Reggie Walsh almost had the best Chelsea debut ever, right? Almost scored with literally his first touch in professional football. I remember that shot. It was a Conference League match. I think it was like out in Kazakhstan. That match that it was like freezing cold. But he's 16. Rakseki's a little bit older than he is, but two guys that are sort of like holding midfielders, although Reggie Walsh can play a little bit more advanced, but two guys that are very promising. I think they'll be very similar to Genesis Antwi, where they'll both kind of go up to the first team, maybe get a couple minutes, maybe here a couple appearances on the bench in the cup, and then go back down to get regular minutes with the reserve squads and the youth squads, just so they can get some minutes and further development. But uh, woo, two kids that are very highly thought of within the academy, and two kids to kind of keep our eye on. So we'll see. But I like both of them. I like both of their profiles. Raksaki is more of a holder, like I said before, and Reggie Walsh can play a little bit more advanced. Forwards, all right. First, first one. Look, never a good sign when you're on your Premier League official page, you've got yourself in another club's jersey, right? Chalaba's got his over here. Even Hato, though. Hato's got the Club World Cup badge, the new Club World Cup badge, because look, they moved it up. Same with Ancelino. But Sterling is just bomb squad, wages crazy, doesn't want to leave London, really hard to move on. Wrong side of or getting up there to be around the wrong side of 30. Just terrible signing. Premier League legend though, for what he did at City. The goals he scored, I think 100 goal Premier League goals. The titles he's won, I think he's won 4 titles. But just not good enough right now for Chelsea Football Club. Earns too much wages, so we can't shift him off. Rumors about him going to Fulham. Rumors about maybe some West Ham, even maybe even looking at him. Um, Saudi, but yeah, again, he's not going to want to leave London. Very settled, and probably similar to last year where we get a deadline day deal loan for him. So whatever we can get, I'm more than happy to to get his to get a move. So we'll see with Raz. You fellow Yardy, so I always wish him the best and always kind of root for him, even though he went to Arsenal last year. But extremely difficult to move on. Chelsea are going to have to work really hard to get him off the books this year. Pedro Neto, one of our best players in the Club World Cup. I would say he had a disappointing year last year, mostly because we knew not what it's attributed to, but mostly that judgment and statement happens, or I say that because we know the kind of player that he is, right? Pace, power, got a decent cross on him, decent eye for goal, lethal in transition, really good outlet. It played a little bit up top for us when we were down a lot of strikers. So big year coming up for Neto. A lot of competition on that right wing for Neto. Right, you got Cole Palmer who can play out there. You got Esteval who can play out there. You got Openda coming next year who can play out there. So really big year for Neto. For me, a successful year for Neto is got to look something like eight, 8 to 10 goals in the Premier League, 5 or 6 assists. I'm looking at that's about 15 GNA. I think he'll get the assists. Right, we've already seen it with a striker in the box that can actually head the ball. He's put in some lovely. He got the cross in there for that João Pedro scored his header on. Another cross in that game that Cole Palmer nearly scored the volley on. So we know the quality is there. It's just about the consistency, about him making the right decision in the final third. But you need somebody like that in certain games because he's got the kind of pace that can make defensive lines drop back a yard or two because they're wary of him running in behind. So big year for Neto. Like I said, I think he's gonna have a good year based off of how he ended last year, based off the form that he had over the summer. So looking for big things for him. Liam Delap, fantastic market opportunity, right? 30 million, 12 goals last year, 12 or 13 with Ipswich. Um, Ipswich went down, triggered his $30 million release clause. We were in for him. United was in for him. Newcastle might even made a cheeky little, inquiry about him, but we got him. Really old school physical center backs, and I personally I love center backs like that. I love center backs that make it difficult for opposition center backs or strikers, old school striker. I love it when you have physical strikers like that make it difficult for opposition center backs to go up against. Um, I feel like he's he's so aggressive. He's a really good striker of the ball. We've seen that with his goal, with his penalty, as well as his nicely first touch goal, nicely curled it right into the bottom left hand corner of the goal. Really gives us a different sort of perspective and gives us a different type of striker than João Pedro. Um, so I'm not expecting him to start week in and week out. I'm expecting honestly for him to be our number 2 striker. But if he's our number two striker, I am extremely, I'll be extremely happy because he's going to want to push hard to try to get into the England squad this year. He's sort of earmarked as the next Harry Kane, as the next England number nine. Um, I just love the aggressiveness of which he plays. Right when he came on versus Milan, the first action that he did was just barge someone and just stick his shoulder into him and let him know he's got to cut out a little bit of the petulance when it comes to yellow cards, because he did lead the league last year in yellow cards, which is for a club like Chelsea that are so poor with discipline. That's not a good sign. So he's got to sort of rein that aggression in and know when to be aggressive and when to sort of back up and chill. But between Delap and João Pedro, who we'll talk about in a little bit, the it's nice to have two strikers in that sort of competition and in that push for it. So um, again, super happy with him, and especially at the price 30 million. There's a lot of clubs across England that would love to have Liam Delap in their squad at a price much higher than 30 million. So big things for him. Jamie Gittins, 50 million, kind of our Madueke replacement, 50 million from Dortmund. Really good first half of the season last year. Then they fired their manager, switched up their tactics, and didn't really play with touchline wingers, so he sort of fell out of fault, which a lot of rival fans and even some Chelsea fans sort of used it against him and saying that, oh, look, his GA wasn't that great. But if you really take the context for it and you look at what happened in that situation and you see, yeah, it wasn't as his numbers declined in the second half for a reason. But I had the opportunity to see him twice, even though we signed him in the middle of the Club World Cup. He still played a little bit with Dortmund, I think, in the first one or two matches. But pace, power, feet, like just incredibly quick feet, great step overs, um, tight control in tight spaces, ability to get shots off. Everything that United fans will say they wanted Garnacho to be, Gittins, in my mind, does that better, which is part of the reason why I feel like we don't need Gittins and there's no reason I'm sorry, don't need Garnacho and there's no reason to actually go out there and get him. I understand wanting somebody that can play on the back shoulder and can be a um, sort of can play the Batman to or the Robin to Neto's Batman in terms of pace and power and the ability to run in behind. Gittins is ball to feet, break down a low block. I'm going to beat a man. Um, get shots off. His finishing was a little bit wayward. Definitely something he's got to prove on. Like most young players, end products aren't there. If Jamie Gittins' end product was there, he wouldn't have cost us 52 million. He would have cost us 75, 80 million. But he's young, got a lot of potential. He'll be homegrown. Count towards that, and has a really, really good chance at locking down this starting left side slot. And I'm excited for him, man. I can't wait to see. I couldn't wait to see him play in the preseason. And when he came on versus Leverkusen, he was dazzling. Just getting into great positions, beating his man, whether it be through the outside or inside onto a stronger right foot. Baller, just a baller, and we'll see him develop. We'll see him get more confidence. We'll see him get used to the speed of the league and the physicality of the league. But I've got a lot of confidence and a lot of faith that he's going to be a very, very good acquisition for us. Um, Nico, I mean, we 2 years of Nico, we know what it is, right? Great, great with the ball, great in terms of link up play, really good at doing everything except for striking the ball, right? Whether or not he's with us, heavily linked to with a move away. I think he's sanctioned a move away and said he's okay with it. But he's also said that he's okay with staying and fighting for his place. I'm happy if he stays and is our third choice striker, but I'm also happy if we get a deal that we can't refuse and we've got to cash in on him. I'm also happy with that. I was of the opinion that he would have been a good fit for not only Newcastle as an Isak replacement, but also for Manchester United with a very fluid front three of Embuemo, Cunha, and what would have been him. So I thought there were teams out there that were a little negatively affected by some of his abilities and things like that. And part of that is because you've seen him play in the Premier League for 2 years, right? I always feel like Premier League clubs would rather take a chance on somebody they haven't seen from outside the league than somebody they've seen inside the league who hasn't necessarily grabbed, taken the reins and grabbed the bull by its horns. But he's a player. I mean, 14 non-penalty goals 2 years ago. 10, was it 10 or 11 last year? I think 10 non-penalty goals last year, 9 of which came in the first half of the season. So the way he started off the season was on fire and was really he was really paramount to our success and our initial push where we got up as high as second in the table before the wheels fell off and then he got injured and just never really found his feet after that. um, Always liked him because he loves the goal against Spurs. We'll never forget that hat trick that he had versus Spurs 2 years ago away, when Spurs were down to 9 men. But of course, some of the disciplinary issues, some of the petulance issues really, really crept into his game last year, right? The red card really, luckily, it didn't hurt us as much, but I mean, we were down to no strikers last year in the end run, in the business run, business end of the season. And that put us in a huge predicament. And then what does he do in the Club World Cup? Gets another red card, gets sent off. Um, you're looking at Pedro coming in, you're looking at the lap coming in. He's got to get his shit together. If he stays here at Chelsea, he's got to get in and he's got to put the work down and he's got to have to take the most of his opportunities. There will be opportunities. Like I said, you never know. Injuries happen. Um, Fixtures can pile up. Plenty of competition. So if he stays, like I said, I'm happy. But whether or not the clubs keep him, it all depends on what kind of offers come in. And like I said, any decent offers, and for me, I'll quantify that. Any decent offer of 50 million euro, or pounds and up. Adios, Nico. Adios. João Pedro. I mean, what can we say about this guy? I mean, was touted as not being a goal scorer. And 55 million. We signed him chilling on the beach, Copacabana Beach in Brazil. 3 days later, he's scoring for us in the Club World Cup. Fast forward, he's chipping Donnarumma. He's getting a brace in the semis. He's scoring in both preseason games, scoring with his from outside the box, scoring headers. If if he continues this, he could be the signing of the summer. And even if his goal scoring tails off a little bit, he's a player that's so good technically, so good with his feet, bringing others into play, just like Nico can, right? Nico's very good at linking up and things like that. Pedro is also very, very good at that, if not even better, because Pedro's a little bit stronger than him, can shield the ball a little bit more. He's got a nasty streak to him. He's a little bit more physical. He's stronger. He's just got that Joga Benita about him, but that Joga Benita with a little bit of a bite, right? So, we're expecting him to sort of continue this form. I'd be shocked if he didn't start match week 1 versus away or at home to Palace, but I am been super impressed by him. Always thought he was a good player at Brighton, good player before that at Watford, but I never you don't really know a player until he comes to your team and you watch every minute and every second of them. And what we've seen from him so far, I have no complaints. 55 million again, considering Madueke went for 52, considering Jokeres went for about 60, Sesko about 75, Isak about 110, 120, 130, Etekike about 75. 55 could be a steal, and he's young. Again, I talked a little bit about Nico and some of the criticism thrown at him of us having seen him. I think Pedro suffered from some of that too, where we've seen him for Brighton for a couple of years, so a lot of people just made up their opinion on him without taking into account what it's like once he plays with better players around him and things like that. So really like our strike force going into the season. Um, and Pedro is going to be the catalyst of that. He's going to be at the apex of that, sort of hopefully chipping in goals. My expectations for him in terms of goals, I'm looking at anywhere from 15 15 to 18 goals is what I expect. if he's our out and out number one. Anything higher than that, I would be ecstatic with. So we'll see. But big things are going. Tyreek, Tyreek's an interesting one, right? Because definitely played a part last year in the stretch run and that goal against Fulham and getting to where we needed to get to. Got good minutes in the the conference league. Played a little bit in the Carabao Cup. But from a number standpoint, it looks like he's just the odd person out. Even though most Chelsea fans would say if you had the choice of signing Garnacho or playing Tyreek, it would be Tyreek all day and all night. But Tyreek might be, taking back and he might be seeing the daily updates by Fabrizio and saying, you know what, I don't. I want to play. I want guaranteed minutes. If Garnacho comes in, is he going to be ahead of me because they paid 25, 30 million for him? Gittins is going to be ahead of him probably because we paid 50 million for him. So he's just the odd man out, and he does have some suitors, right? Leipzig are looking at him. Maybe some other clubs in maybe Dortmund a little bit are looking at him. Um, Good size, good good technical base, not super pacey, but pretty quick. Um, Decent strike on him. Not afraid to shoot with either feet. Can play a little bit up top too. Um, good player. Like if we were I think he'll end up going out on loan, and then hopefully he smashes it. But if we were to sell him, 20 million, 25 million, um, 15 million plus add-ons and sell-on fees and things like that, I'd be happy with that. Um, and then last but not least, sort of to round up the squad, Esteval, right? And just, we've been hearing for a while the hype, the next Neymar, the next big thing out of Brazil. When we signed him a couple of years ago, got to see him this summer with Palmeiras up and close. We've seen him a couple times feature for the Brazilian national team off that right hand side. Um, didn't think he had a great Club World Cup, which you know, sort of drowned. I wouldn't say drowned, but sort of some of the rivals, sort of made up their opinion on him already. But all it took was one half versus Leverkusen, and the promise and the just the rumors and just everything that we've heard about Esteval and what kind of player he was. You saw all of that in that first half versus Leverkusen, and pretty decent second half too, especially when he moved inside to the 10, the deputized Palmer in there too. I mean, comfortable. He was dropping deep. He's got an eye for pass. Can obviously carry the ball. Good ball strike. Right, scored his first goal, even though it's not his first official goal for Chelsea. Being in the right position at the right time and nice quality finish. Kind of hit it into the ground and then into the back of the net. Um, he's a player that ideally you would want to sort of casually introduce into the squad and sort of ease his transition period, but he looks ready. He looks physically ready, right? We've seen it in this summer really sort of brought to the world's attention the physicality of some of those South American leagues. I mean, folks like Esteval, he's probably getting chopped down and just dirty tackles and just folks trying to manhandle him because they know they can't get near him for a long time. And he's a little bit taller, a little bit bigger than what I expected. Um, but just the talent, the ingenuity. Um, it's no reason why when Madueke saw this kid come in and saw this kid train that he knew his days were numbered at Chelsea. So big things, big things are going for Esteval. Um, don't expect I don't expect a Lamine Yamal type of burst onto the scene type of thing, but he's someone that's going to contribute heavily for us next year and in the years to come. And if we do it right and we play it right and we manage his minutes, we manage his development, get him stronger, get him in the weight room, he's going to be a serious problem for Premier League side. So yeah, man, that sort of wraps up the squad. I know it's very in depth and very um, took a little bit of a while, but yeah, man, we've got a lot of big squad and a lot of potential in this squad to do really good things. Really young and really good core base. mixed in with a few experiences and a few pieces here and there, and we could have a very very good season. So before we wrap this up, we'll just take a look, and we'll do a Crystal Palace preview a little bit closer to it, because there's a lot of things going on at Palace that could affect what the lineup looks like. Right, the Eze rumors, the Gahey, the Liverpool rumors, um, Adam Wharton, although most likely he probably won't move this summer. Even Mateta, is probably highly sought after, and things like that. So yeah, they've Crystal Palace has a lot of uncertainty when it comes to what we'll actually see out there on Sunday. But going into it, despite I think we drew with them last year, but despite that, we've always had a really good record of Palace since they've come up, whether that be home or away. And as good as Palace is, and they are very good. I watched them in that Crystal Palace game. Glasner has them very well coached. They're a very well drilled side. They've got very good players. That Muniz or Munoz, the right back is very dangerous going forward. Lacroix is a good center back. Gahey is a good center back. Tyreek Mitchell can do a job on the left hand side. Adam Morton is probably a future star in there. Will Hughes, I'm not too huge on, but he's a very physical and experienced midfielder. And then Eze, Mateta, and even Sarr. I was a big fan of Sarr when he was at Watford. Um, they're very fluid and dynamic in attack. They can interchange, they can pop up, and like I mentioned before, Mateta is just a handful. Old school center back, shirt tucked in, face mask last year. You just know it's going to be a physical battle when you go up against them. But should be getting the 3 points there. West Ham after that. West Ham for me is one of my dark horses to go down. They hold on to Paqueta, which they most likely will. They'll probably eke it out just because they have Maqueta and Bowen as sort of match winners. Maybe Antonio, hopefully he gets fully recovered and things like that. Not so much for this match, but just in general. But they're a squad that their finances are so poor that it's going to be very hard for them to add real quality to the squad. I think they did go out and upgrade on their keeper recently, but our trips in the past last year, I think we smoked West Ham twice. Um, the year before that, I remember the BS handball that Suchek had, where he pretty much dove on the ground like a hockey goalkeeper, and they didn't call it. But over the years, we've done very well at that, whether it's the Bolin or the Olympic Stadium versus West Ham. And like I said, that should be an I won't say an easy, because nothing's easy in the Premier League, but that should be a 3 points that we need to get. Fulham, on the other hand, very tricky, very good manager in Marco Silva. Um, Pretty decent players, although there's rumors that they might lose their starting striker. Potentially bring in Reece Nelson as some left wing cover. Maybe if you want to pull the trigger on Raz and get him as well. But um, another side that I'm looking at home should be 3 points. Should be a fixture that we're looking to dominate the ball, have a lot of the possession, create more of the chances. So hopefully, like I said, we get things done, and it's 9 out of 9 for those first three matches, right? We have West Ham, Fulham, and Crystal Palace. After that, the next two are definitely going to be not this one so much, but the one after that definitely going to be tricky. But Brentford away. Thomas Frank always was a good manager against us. Always did very well. Set his sides up very nicely. Hard for us to break down. Um, so we'll see though, because as of right now, they lost their manager. They lost Embuemo. Wisa's refusing to train, and looks like he might be on his way to Newcastle. They lost their club captain in Norgard. They still got Sade, who I like, very good player that came from the Bundesliga, but they're also sort of a dark horse depending on what they do in the market, and how they spend some of that Embuemo and maybe Wisa and Norgard money. Um, but also, they could be in real danger of going down, which is kind of a shame, because since they've been up, they've been a proper handful for a lot of teams, right? I remember their first match in the top flight, when they got back in versus Arsenal, where they were fist up Arsenal with Ivan Toney and those folks, but really good players that they used to have, and just a really like tricky Premier League side, right? Like one of those sides that you catch them midweek when you've got, or you catch them when you've got a tricky midweek European fixture or cup fixture, and you're like, yeah, they're going to be difficult to break down. But I haven't seen too much of them in the preseason. Um, don't know what formation this new manager is. I think he was our set piece coach, so crazy promotion from set piece coach to manager. But we'll see with that one. But again, even though it's the way it's at the the Reebok, not Reebok, at the JJB. No, that's the same one. At Brentford Stadium, we still should be getting 3 points there. But next one, that one's going to be that's going to be out of the first five fixtures that we have. That's going to be the one to watch, right? That is the one match last year that I absolutely crashed out on. To not beat that Manchester United team, to go behind 1-1 or 1-0 and then ultimately get a draw there. We need to be winning at Old Trafford. We haven't won at Old Trafford since I want to say Mata, in the Mata days, which was like 2012, 2013. And considering the squads that United have had since what, post Fergie, we should have really been winning there. But to United's credit, they play a lot of the big clubs at home very tough, right? Arsenal, we know they got them week one this year. They've played them tough at home. They've beaten Liverpool at home over the last few years. They've beaten City at home. They've taken points. They've not Spurs. Spurs is about the only team that goes there and just wipes the floor with them. But for us, yeah, that's one that by then you would expect Sesko to be fully integrated and fit. You would expect Mbuemo to be fully integrated and fit, and same with Cunha. And who knows if they get Baleba and maybe a goalkeeper, that's a side with one match a week is looking at jumping from 15th to maybe top six. But again, still better than them. We still should expect to go there to win. We still should um, be able to impose our dominance on there, even if they do get Baleba. That midfield is still whoever they pair him with. If it's Bruno, if it's Casemiro, if it's Ugarte, if it's Manu, none of those guys can even chat to our midfield and don't really have the legs to cover the kind of the spaces and the gaps that Amarin's system exposes them to. So again, very crucial. And if we want to be challenging and we want to get off on a good foot, like just like we did last year, we need to be taking at least, I'm going to say at least 13 points from these first five fixtures. That's 4 wins, 1 draw. Um, to be honest with you, I'm not really too fussed where that draw would come. I would prefer that if this United match wasn't the draw, but I'll take 13 out of 15. I don't think the race, even if Liverpool get Isak, it's going to be done and dusted early. I think Liverpool's going to take a lot of time to acclimatize to the new players. Yo, big up T, big up T. You just jumped in at the end of it, man. I'm just wrapping it up. But yeah, I think we fixture wise, we have the most favorable fixtures to get off to a good start. I look at our schedule, our fixtures. I look at City's fixtures. I look at Liverpool's fixtures being very difficult, and then Arsenal's fixtures being very difficult at all. If we can kind of pick up that momentum, get up that momentum, get some early points on the board, while some of these other clubs really, really acclimatize to some of their new players. Um, yeah, man, set them notifications, T. Um, but yeah, if we take advantage of Liverpool, introducing Verts, introducing Isak, introducing Ekatike, 2 new fullbacks. We've got a good opportunity to sort of, you know, get some early points and allow ourselves I don't want to say breathing room, but allow ourselves a little bit of cushion while those other clubs, Arsenal getting used to playing with Gyökeres, Man United getting used to playing with a whole new front three, Man City, potentially losing Savio and introducing maybe Rodrigo or Cherky into the 10, getting Foden back up to speed. No Rodri. We've got a really good opportunity to sort of carry over the good form from the Club World Cup and really capitalize off the momentum that we built with that and some of the advantages of playing with that. Whether or not that's going to hurt us in the long run, and whether or not we'll burn out and we'll phase out towards the end of the season is TBD, right? Like nobody can predict that. But at the same time, the depth in the squad, and if we add, a few pieces here and there, if we potentially upgrade on that right-sided center back, if we um, bring in a Javi Simmons and things like that, that gives us quality depth that Maresca can work with to potentially keep the minutes down so that we have a strong campaign and it's not just a strong start, wither off again in December like we did last year. So we'll see, man. We'll see. I'm super confident. Or super excited about the season. I haven't felt these kind of vibes going into a preseason or going into a regular season since the 2014-15 season when we went out and we added Douglas, or we added Costa, we added Fabregas, Felipe Luis, Shirla, or no, Shirley came the year before. But when we went out and just made a statement of, you know what, we upgraded and things like that. So we'll see. But yeah, definitely a quiet week for us, T, when it comes to incomings and outgoings. Um, yeah, I have no idea. I mean, we've all heard that the two in, two out when it comes to Garnacho and Simmons coming in is dependent upon whether or not we can move in Cuckoo and whether or not we can move Nico. Um, I heard the rumors about United potentially being quiet admirers of Nkuku, although I don't really, or not them, of Arsenal being quiet admirers of them. I don't see them after the backlash that they got or they saw their fan base do when Madueke came. I don't think that would potentially happen again. I don't think they would go through it. I think his most likely move is the Bundesliga, whether or not Bayern will pony up some funds or whether or not Leipzig can afford his wages. We'll see, but yeah, if we can definitely, I feel like once one of those goes out, those guys go out, we'll get Simmons, and hopefully it's Simmons, and and then then we make another move, and then it'll probably be Garnacho. But to be honest with you, if we only get one of those guys out, the guy that comes in, yeah, Serie too. Yeah, Inter was also looking at Nkuku, and he'd probably do well in that league. But if if we can only get one guy in because we only got one of those guys shifted out, yeah, man, it would be really, yeah, I'd be really happy if that guy that came in was not named not named Garnacho, right? I made my feelings known on Jimmy's channel. I've made it known on Joey's channel, and all over Twitter about just don't want that guy anywhere near my club. I don't think he's good enough as a footballer. Don't like his personality. I don't like all the stuff, the drama that he brings with him. Like I have no doubts that he'd probably fall in line with some of that stuff. But I don't think he's good enough as a player to take those kind of risks on him unless the fee is so crazy. Like unless it's a 20 million, then I can sort of understand why the directors would want him because for 20 million if he fails here, you can still move him on with minimal hits and maybe even make a profit depending on or considering how well we move players on and how well we sell them. But yeah, it's definitely gone a little quiet. But one thing about Chelsea, man, you just you just never know, man, because we deals can just pop up and manifest like that out of the blue, like Neto did last year. um, and or you could wake up like we did. What was that? 2-3 weeks ago, when all of a sudden we had gotten three players out. Like KDH went out, Ugochukwu went out, Broja went out, and it was just like back to back to back. So we'll see. But yeah, I did see that too today, T. About us agreeing personal terms with Simmons. Although when I read that, I was like, my first thought was I thought we had done that a while ago, and I thought it was just Fab being Fab and just you know um, just getting his mentions up, getting his likes up, getting his tweets up, and things like that. But yeah, we'll see. But I expect Simmons to come. So um, Yeah, after game week one clubs, yeah, definitely scrambling last minute because, I mean, injuries, last minute. People think that the squads are a little bit short, or they you know say you're a club like Arsenal, right? Like Arsenal could go out there, lose at Old Trafford because they have a stinky record there, or draw, and their left winger could stink the place up, and then all of a sudden they could be like, you know what, fuck it, we're gonna make the move, we're gonna sell Trossard, and then we're gonna bring in a Lookman, we're gonna go after a Rodrigo, we're gonna potentially go after get a layout and things like that. So yeah, we'll definitely see, but I'm gonna end the stream here. I appreciate you locking in. Yeah, hit that notification next time. This was my first ever live stream on YouTube, so I'm still learning how to work StreamYard and all these things, and hopefully we'll get the channel up. We'll definitely get it more active, get some more videos up. I've been knocking out a lot of shorts because work has been crazy, right? And work and personal life has been crazy right now in terms of time. But yeah, definitely a lot of things brewing, for Chelsea, even though the transfer window and transfer market has kind of quieted down a little bit. But we'll definitely get some more stuff up on the channel and try to build this up, and then do my best to hop on other folks' things and stuff like that. So big up, T. Appreciate that. Um, Everybody else, make sure you hit that like, hit that subscribe, turn those notifications on, and we'll catch you at the next one, man. Peace.